Hey there. Today I'm going to be converting my Trek Marlin 7's tires to tubeless. I've already done the front tire to make sure I knew what I was doing. Ended up taking a while. I'll explain that later. But let me get the bike flipped over and get the back tire off. Okay, now I just need to let the air out of it. Now the tire's deflated. Pretty much I just got to break the bead. That's essentially right there. That's how you know if you have a tubeless tire. If the bead locks on like that, then you have a tubeless tire. There's a few things, of course, you have to do, which I'll show to be able to get it to hold air. I'm gonna break that bead on here real quick just by pressing real hard with both of my thumbs. I've got it on that side. And do the same thing on the other side. Sometimes it can be harder than others, but yeah, there you go. I just got to really apply some pressure. Okay, to take your tire off, you just need one plastic tool like this. Don't use the metal ones, you'll damage your rim and it may never hold air. Sometimes maybe you need two. Some people need them to be able to prop up the opening like that. But I personally have learned just to use my finger and go like that. So, yep, and do that to both sides and get it all off. Pretty impressed with my K-Wick road tires. I've been riding in the desert for months. Took it down on a tour to Tucson and I don't see a single hole that came through that tire. So they are real good street tires. I like them. Okay, the next thing you're gonna wanna do, I know on the Trek, this is not for tubeless right here. You can tell because it's not stuck whatsoever. Don't make the mistake like other people in leaving this in. It'll give you no benefit. It'll actually cause you problems and you'll start leaking later down the road. So I'm gonna take that out real quick. Sometimes they're a little bit of a pain to get out. Okay, now you're gonna wanna inspect the inside of your rim here. Yeah, sometimes you have stickers like this one here. Go ahead and remove that. Okay, now that I got all the stickers out of the inside of the track, I'm gonna take rubbing alcohol and I'm gonna clean all the way around it and try to get all the goop and any kind of dirt off the inside of the track. It's very important to do this. I don't want to use water because I want something that can evaporate really quick, because if it was wet, that would totally ruin the whole job. For the next part, I'm gonna tape the rim here. I did a lot of research on the rim tapes that are sold for this. You got some by Stands and different companies. Did not read very good things about them. The one I ended up going with actually has better reviews for rim tape than all the others. It is the Gorilla Tape. It may sound like it's a little bit of a jerry rig or ghetto, as some people would call it, but it actually, in my opinion, it looks better than the professional rim tape and it holds better, honestly. Okay, basically where I want to start taping it is opposite of the valve hole. So I have the valve stem hole right here. I'm gonna go all the way to the other side over here. And the reason I do that is to balance the tire out a little bit better. The valve stem does have a little bit of weight to it, so on this side the tape will be doubled over a little bit. I'm sure it's not noticeable, but just want to do it as best as I can, you know. So I'm just going to start about halfway in between the spokes here and there. And you want to get this first part on there pretty good, get it stuck, because the next part, what you're gonna do, you're gonna pull really, really hard. This rim tape fits great on the Trek Marlin 7. It's the 1 inch to go Gorilla Tape, but yeah, it's like it was made for it. You're gonna make sure you don't get the tape inside of the where the bead needs to lock into. That could become a problem in your tire off later on. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you hear like that stretching sound like that. That means you're getting it on real tight there, and you want to rub along, sealing it down as you go. Now that I'm to the other side, I'm going to go ahead and overlap it by a couple spokes there. One of the nice things about the Gorilla Tape is it rips just like duct tape. So you just tear it off with your hands, don't need scissors or anything. Now that I got that all the way on, I'm gonna go around and rub down the middle track of it and also the sides of it, making sure everything's firmly stuck down. As you can see, I got it laying down perfectly, no bubbles whatsoever. So yeah, At this point, I definitely think the Gorilla Tape is better than the stuff they're selling for this. The stuff they're selling for this, quite honestly, looks like a cheap packing tape that doesn't stick very well. Next thing I need to do is, well, find the valve stem. Okay, find the valve stem, and there, I'm gonna go from the underside of the valve stem with this tiny little screwdriver. Oh no, in the center, I'm gonna go ahead and poke a small hole through it, like so. Now that I have it through that end, I'm gonna come on this side and poke all the way through there. Next thing you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and take your valve stem out and go ahead and remove, well, you first have the cap. You wanna remove that. Then we're gonna also remove this little retaining nut here. And then you also wanna remove the tiny little rubber washer, leaving the big washer on there. Okay, the next thing you're gonna wanna do is remove the valve core from the valve stem. I recommend using a tool for this. You can use needle nose pliers or something, but you may end up actually messing up the valve core. So I'm gonna remove that real quick. And this will allow for when we're locking the bead on to rush as much air into the tire as possible. So take that out and don't lose that, that's very important. Okay, now I just need to locate my hole again. There it is right there. And you can see it's a small hole. I'm gonna actually use the valve stem to make the hole so it is exactly the size that I need it to be. Okay, with the valve stem poking through, the next thing you're gonna do is take that little tiny rubber washer and you're gonna wanna put that on there. That basically helps protect the rim. Some people think it actually helps hold in air, but that's internally, every single spoke could leak air out. No, it's a protector rim from getting gouged. It's also to hold the nut on there firmly. So the next thing you want to do is go ahead and put the retaining nut on there. And with this, you don't want to use any tools. You may be out on the trail and you need to put in a tube. So you want to be able to get this off by hand. So what you do is you take your thumb on the other side, press really, really hard down and screw this thing as tight as you can get it with your fingers. Do not use a tool on it. Okay, I got the tire that came with the bike. Was used for, I think, about a week or so. So I'm just gonna take alcohol and I'm gonna clean all the way around the bead. Just make sure there's nothing foreign in there to try to get a perfect seal here. And I'm gonna do that, of course, to both sides. Now I'm gonna put on the tire just like you would for any other bike. Of course, there's no tube in it, that'd be the difference. You don't have to worry about pinch flats or anything. What you wanna make sure is if there's an arrow on the tire that it's pointing forward when it's in the up position. Brakes are always gonna be on the left-hand side, so when you have the tire off, you know which way it's going forward. Otherwise, you're gonna put it all the way on, you're gonna get all this done, you're gonna realize you have it on backwards, so that would be no fun. So I'm gonna put on the tire real quick. So the internet doesn't have the hissy fit. I'm gonna line up the logo with the valve stem there. Does it really matter? No, not really. It just keeps people from nagging. So now with the tire on there, we just can't pump air into it with a normal pump. Matter of fact, I have a little e-bike pump here. It's a little compressor. This still won't lock the bead. It's definitely not enough pressure to make that happen. You can use CO2 canisters for this size type bike. I tried a 16. Almost did. I mean, it was so close. The bead was like a few inches from popping the last bit, but that didn't work. So if you're gonna use CO2, you definitely need 25 grams. What I ended up doing through my frustration is I went online, I bought this air canister called AirShock. It's a little bit pricey, but after you compare it to a compressor that would be able to do this or a chamber pump, it's not so pricey anymore. Plus I kind of like the portability of it. What you end up doing is you pump up this thing through this valve here, you get it all the way full. Last time I did about 110 PSI and then you release all the air through the valve. Last tire I had one side set. This one I'm gonna try having none of them set. And of course I'm not gonna put the fluid in first. I wanna make sure I can lock the bead before I get all that mess in. And this little part here screws down into the tire. Now I got it screwed into the tire where the valve core would normally be. Set the tire onto its side here. This is going to make my life a little bit easier. Plus, I know if you have any kind of weight on the tire, it can make the bead snapping a little bit harder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little mini air compressor here. I'm going to pump this guy up to 110, release it, and if all goes well, it'll snap both sides on. This there, but I think it's referring to a large compressor. I don't think it's referring to my little tiny thing. I don't actually have a bike pump. I'm not too big a fan of pumping. I mean, other than my backpack one, but that would take eons to pump this up. So I'm gonna use a compressor. Pump it up to around 110. Okay, got the pump up to 110 PSI. Basically all I need to do is dump it out. You want to leave the pump connected. Sometimes the bead doesn't snap all the way and you need to push additional air into the system to get that last little bit on. But here we go. Yeah, heard no snap. Bam. Okay, the bead is set all the way around the tire. Maybe minor leakages at this point, just tiny little seeps, but the main purpose of that was to get the bead set all the way around. Now at this point, you pretty much just let all that air right back out. And the bead will stay locked. I'm gonna put in the Stan's tire sealant into this. Of course, you can pour it into before you set any kind of bead or anything. But if anything goes wrong, you're gonna create one heck of a mess. So I ended up getting a pricey little syringe here to be able to inject it in. Additionally, this will allow me to recover my fluid anytime I'm doing a tire swap. This stuff is, I think it usually runs between $20 to $25 a thing. So, and you use, some people want to use 2 ounces. I'm out in the desert, so I'm gonna use closer to 4 ounces. A little bit more secure too, because we do get quite hot and have a high evaporation rate. So I'm gonna fill the syringe up. So I gotta do 2 injections. So yeah, I just stick it right down into there and inject it into the tire. Now I'm just gonna pretty much go and wash this out really good, because basically want to save it to be able to reuse it. Unless you're rich, you could just keep buying them. Now I'm gonna want to put the valve stem back in. Make sure it's in there firmly tight. If you don't, when you're airing up your tires, you may go to pull the pump off and pull the core out with it. That's definitely no fun if you're out on the trail, especially if it was your last CO2 canister. And I'm just making sure that the base is on tight there still. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the valve all the way there. And now basically I'm gonna pump it up to 65 PSI. Moment of truth. Got it about half pressure now. Just wanna go ahead and give it a shake. Get it all around the sidewalls real good so there's no pinholes. All right, last but not least, just kind of go around the tire, do a little bit of listen. You could throw the whole thing into the bathtub, I guess, if you wanted to, but I don't think that's necessary. Just keep rotating it. If you do hear a leak, try to direct the liquid that way. It should seal it up. Let's get this guy back on the bike. Nice. Now just nice. I guess I gotta get some shoes on and go test her out. It's all desert that way, so I'm gonna test them out some more. Anyways, you try to have a good day.